Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you are very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat. And as this video is going to be going out on Halloween afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where you are in the world, the time will of course be different. Either way, it's going to be going out in the year 2025, that's for sure. It does feel fitting that we find a relevant topic to cover. And it seems to me that over the last few years, I have heard a similar complaint being repeated around this time, and that is that there is a sense of discontentment about the increasing popularity and focus on Halloween and its festivities in the UK. And this discontentment usually takes the form of some kind of hubbub or brouhaha or some such about Halloween not really being our tradition and instead something that has been imported through the TV and films that are coming to us from the US. Now, as to why this might be the cause of discontentment, I must say I don't think I really have an answer to give you. What I do know is that my own children, particularly the eldest of course, has wholly thrown himself into the joys of Halloween, and I certainly can't think of any media that he might have seen that included Halloween at all, whether that was from the US or otherwise. And with that in mind, I have been led to some questions. I wonder whether this discontentment is really caused by what people think it's caused by. Have we, in fact, had a number of traditions from another nation that have actually flooded in and taken over in the UK over the last few years? Is that what everyone is really bothered about? Well, let's see what we can find out. For the pagan ancient Celts who called these British Isles home, Halloween was Samhain. As summer drew to a close, with the days getting shorter and the nights longer, this was a festival with a clear focus on fire. Animals and crops were burnt as sacrifices, and there was certainly an awareness that in the harsh months that were to follow, there would be those who would not survive. Implicit in these celebrations were, though, a recognition that these dark, dangerous months would pass. And so, Samhain also celebrated rebirth, a reminder that the spring would eventually come. It was also believed to be a time where the veil between the world of the living and that of the dead became permeable and allowed the living and the dead to commune with each other. The living left offerings for these travelling dead, and they also lit bonfires to see off the potential threat of any malevolent spirits that might take advantage of this thinning of the barrier that separated the world of the spirits from that of the living. People took to wearing costumes and masks, to disguising themselves. This was known as guising, or in some cases, mumming. There was, though, another way to safeguard a household from any ill-meaning spirits. It was, in this case, thought useful to place treats at the threshold of the home, on the doorstep. These were known as soul or soul mass cakes, and they are thought to be the origin of the tradition of giving out sweets, or, if you're across the pond, candy, to those who came trick-or-treating to your door. In the 6th century, during the papacy of Gregory I, proselytization was very much the order of the day, and this Pope Gregory launched what became known as the Gregorian mission to convert the pagans of Anglo-Saxon England. This mission used Kent as a launchpad. Beverly de Silva, writing for BBC Culture and quoting Lynn Bayliss, explains that, quote, "The Gregorian mission decreed that Samhain festivities must incorporate Christian saints to ward off the sprites and evil creatures of the night." Increasingly, those entities that were being recognised and defined as evil by the Church and its missionaries were those that were traditionally focused on during these Samhain festivities. Nearly 2 centuries later, another Pope Gregory would leave his own mark on the end of October and start of November. In the text American Folklore and Encyclopedia, the reader is informed that, quote, "In AD 731, All Saints' Day was established on November the 1st by Pope Gregory III. The evening prior to the feast, the Eve of All Hallows, or All Hallow Even, has become known as Halloween. Many scholars have noted the apparent continuity of traditions, with the ancient Celtic quarter day known as Samhain, November 1st, and have suggested that the Church Fathers were attempting to redirect the religious devotion of that day toward a Christian feast, while redefining the customary behaviour in a Christian context. This would account for the continuity of activities such as mumming, performing, often in costume, in return for food and drink, along with the belief that the evening was the time for wandering spirits. At the beginning of the 11th century, the Church would add another date to this lineup. The 2nd of November would become known as All Souls' Day. This was a day that was set aside for the recognition of those souls of the people faithful to the Church who had died during the previous year. By the start of the Tudor period in England, a specific set of Halloween traditions had been established, and Keith Linley explains them. Quote, "In Tudor times, the king wore purple and the court black, in mourning for the departed. Bells were rung at intervals throughout the 3 days, and community meals were taken as a form of wake, with feasting, drinking, and dancing. However, these traditions and the beliefs that underpinned them would fall under suspicion in the doctrinal reconfiguration that accompanied the English Reformation, because for the Church of England, Halloween's pagan connections, when coupled with its apparent aims to see off evil spirits and perform rites for the dead, as the Roman Catholic Church asserted was a requirement, made its continuation deeply problematic. Those who were devoted to reform within the English Church could point to Halloween as a festival of superstitions, exactly like those other superstitions that they were seemingly seeking to sweep away, so that they might further God's plan for mankind, preserve English souls, and protect the Church of England. I'm sure that many of us will connect the festivities that surround Halloween with the dead. I mean, after all, skeletons, and particularly ghosts, are a ubiquitous feature. When it comes to this, particularly when it comes to ghosts, the early church was, in the beginning, reticent to incorporate this notion. This attitude towards ghosts would shift, with an increasing emphasis on purgatory as somewhere that was a real place. It was thought that the human spirit would not possibly want to leave the perfection of heaven to visit earth, while on the other hand, hell was known to be an infernal trap, somewhere that a human spirit would be eternally kept. Purgatory, though, offered somewhere more liminal. A soul in purgatory might, it was believed, return to harass their nearest and dearest, so that those people, the living ones, might buy more masses for their departed loved one's soul, so that that person in purgatory might be released to heaven sooner. Or they may have returned to see out some unfinished business. Either way, an apparition or a ghost, if experienced, had an explanation. Following the Reformation, and with its linked denial of the existence of purgatory, an individual now had to question where an apparition, if experienced, had come from. Rather than being the restless soul of a loved one, might this thing actually be demonic in nature and in origin? A trick from the devil, perhaps? If so, then paying it any attention, or perhaps even marking its existence ceremonially, might offer a way for demonic corruption to enter into a person's life, to damage their soul. As Linley explains, from the mid-16th century, those traditional ways of marking Halloween, All Saints, and All Souls, with the king and court in colours of mourning, with church bells being rung, with feasting, mumming, and guising taking place, were being viewed as being, quote, too papistically superstitious for the Reformed English Church. The post-Reformation Tudors would, though, continue to mark Hallowmass as a time to reflect on the lives of saints. However, as Ronald Hutton explains, The intention was that this time should be used, quote, as a celebration of saints as outstanding, godly human beings, and not as semi-divine intercessors. Whatever the government and its Church of England might order, the original traditions would, though, be hard to erase. Linley points out that, quote, it took a long while for communities to fully conform. Prosecutions for illegal bell ringing were still being made into the 1580s. From this, we may be led to understand that, although it took some decades, eventually, little by little, Hallowmass and all its festivities would be eroded in this nation, perhaps eroded down to nothing. However, while many traditions would certainly be swept away to make space for the doctrinal desires of the Church of England, that does not mean, I think, that any re-emergence of Hallowmass traditions that we see now can purely be put down to the importation of celebrations from another nation. Nor, I think, should any cultural exchange in this regard be simply viewed as a one-way traffic. We have, for example, already looked at the possible United Kingdom origins of trick-or-treating. Are there perhaps other things that sit in a similar vein? Let's take, for example, the carving of vegetables into lanterns with faces. Among other things, that is certainly a tradition that was practised in Ireland. Turnips were used for this purpose. They'd be placed in windows to see off unwanted apparitions. And this tradition, it's thought, may have made its way to the US and eventually onto the pumpkin in the 19th century, having been transported there by Irish immigrants. Equally, it might also be traced back to the display of carved lanterns made out of turnips and or something called a mangelwurzel that were and are central to a Somerset tradition of what's known as Punky Night. This is observed on the last Thursday in October. Perhaps it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Maybe we have re-imported the traditions of Halloween in an altered state, having been mediated by the way they'd been observed in the US. It may be that that is where the credit lies for those Halloween celebrations that my children have come and are increasingly coming to absolutely adore. And it's not just my children, because I love it too. I will absolutely be celebrating Halloween this year. I mean, after all, I am part of the celebrations marking Halloween at Hampton Court Palace at the moment. However, I do also want to highlight a quotation from Ben Edge, who researched Britain's folklore and folk customs for his book Folklore Rising. I will leave that linked. Edge has explained that during his studies he witnessed a, quote, resurgence of people becoming interested in ritual and folklore in Britain. He described this as, quote, a folk renaissance, and stated that he saw it as a genuine movement led by younger people. But what do you think of the apparent ebb and flow of Halloween or Hallowmass celebrations in Britain? Of the way that traditions appear to move back and forth across the Atlantic? What do you think might be causing that folk renaissance described by Ben Edge? And last but by no means least, will you be celebrating any part of Hallowmass? And if you will, perhaps you might share what you've got planned with us. As always, I'm looking forward to reading your conversations in the comments section underneath this video. I'd also love it if you could pop an emoji or a social glyph in the comments too, because that will boost the engagement, get this video shared out more, and thus hopefully help us to grow our community. I'm thinking we have to pick something Halloween related. There might be quite a few options in your emoji selection, so do let me know why you've picked what you've picked with words, because apparently that will keep the algorithm gremlins even happier than images alone. You can find me elsewhere on social media. I will leave links to places you can find me on the internet in my description box. Please do follow me over on some or all of those so we can continue this conversation and start some others. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, why not share it with your friends? If you like the channel, let some pals know about it. You can tell me about this video in particular by hitting the thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel. If you think you are subscribed, have a little check now, just to make sure you're not being mysteriously unsubscribed against your will. And while you are there, checking, subscribing, maybe resubscribing, please do hit the bell icon that sits beside the subscribe button and then select all in the drop-down menu that will appear, and that way YouTube claims they will tell you when I've next uploaded, but also, allegedly, when I'll next be going live. I'm doing that at the moment once a month to talk about the history news. Lots of you lovely people send me news items that connect to the world of history, whether that's about repatriations, about new discoveries, about people doing silly things at historical sites, events, exhibitions, and publications. It's sometimes very funny, sometimes pretty serious. Either way, I think it's a pretty good time and you aren't going to want to miss it. And when I say it's a pretty good time, it's also a fairly long time because at the moment it is going for about 2.5 hours. We have, of course, got our failsafe. If you head over to my website, which I will leave linked, it is www.katrinamarchant.com. Head to the contact page and there you will see this box. Please pop your email address in that box and then hit sign up. That will add you to my list, which will allow me to send you out an email once a week to let you know what I've been up to, but also to send you useful links to my content for the coming days. I hope you're going to have a great day, whatever you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.